So by 1977, the smallpox has been completely eradicated from the world. So World Health Organization has given a statement that smallpox is dead. So this is an interesting achievement that is done by World Health Organization. So today there is no more smallpox because of a vigorous vaccines which is initiated by World Health Organization. So this is all about a brief introduction and history of smallpox infection. Now let us come to the actual notes. So let us see what is the morphology, the basic things of this virus. And we know that we will break down any virus into these 10 points. We will discuss about introduction, classification, morphology, susceptibility, isolation, pathogenesis, signs and symptoms, lab diagnosis, prophylaxis, and treatment. So let us see the smallpox, right? So coming to the introduction to smallpox. So pox viruses belongs to a family called Poxviridae, and they will cause many human diseases. Particularly, they will cause the skin infection. So they will cause skin lesions. So there will be the lesions on the skin. Then, if you see the classification of this smallpox, these pox viruses are broadly classified into two types. We have two broad genuses in smallpox. I'm sorry, pox viridae. So in pox viridae, we have Cordopox virinae and Entomopox virinae. So Entomopox virinae is not so deadly, but the Cordopox viridae is very deadly viruses. So in Cordopox viridae, we have Molluscipox. So we have two various genuses in Cordopox virinae. That includes Molluscipox, Orthopox, Parapox, and Yatapox. So the smallpox belongs to, oh, I didn't given here. Okay, so the smallpox belongs to orthopox viruses. Okay, so both, one important thing I almost forgot to tell you, students. Rather than saying it as a smallpox, the actual name of smallpox virus is variola virus. VARIOLA, variola virus. So the actual name of smallpox is variola. So variola is the original name of smallpox. Okay, but we have different variola viruses. So in order to avoid the confusion, we renamed this variola virus to smallpox. Okay, I don't want to confuse you, but there are few viruses with the same name, variola. If I telling those things, you may get confused. So variola virus or smallpox is same. Okay, that is what I want to tell you. So smallpox belong to the genus orthopox viruses. Okay, so that's it. So this pox viridae have two subfamilies, Cordopox virinae and Entomopox virinae. Cordopox virinae, in Cordopox virinae, we have many genuses, but let us highlight important genuses such as Molluscipox, Orthopox, Parapox, and Etapox. So this orthopox, our smallpox belongs to the orthopox. Smallpox is also called as variola virus, VARIOLA. Okay, that you need to remember.
Sir.
Yes, Mr. Navneet.
Sir, I was suffering from variola, a smallpox, sir, also.
Oh, you once upon a time you suffered. Yeah, this is a common infection, but you will get immunized. You were recovered,
after
right?
yes, after 9 days, sir, I was recovered from variola virus itself, sir. No any type of medicine like this.
Nothing. We just need to sit in
But
the
sir,
room.
also sir called Mata in Hindi
Indian
language,
tradition,
sir.
yes, we will say
Yes,
that
Mata.
Mata came to the body.
Yes.
And they will offer nice food to you, so you can eat whatever you want after 9 days. Yeah. So Mata virus. So smallpox or
नो
variola.
सर, नो सर, माता डिजीज मतलब बीमारी होते माता आ रहे हैं इसको.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that is smallpox. So
Also, sir,
yes,
I
we
think,
have.
sir, I think, sir, yeah, these are transmitted disease, sir. Because, sir,
Highly infectious.
my
It will
yes,
easily infect others also. Yeah, very
my
highly
brother,
infectious.
yes, sir.
Yes, if all the members in the family, especially the younger children, will get infected. If one person got this variola infection, means it will spread in the people. But the good thing about this smallpox viruses is once getting infection, we will get immunized. So we will develop a lifelong immunity. Actually, uh, mm, Navneet, that is not a smallpox infection. What we are getting, we will get pox infection. I know. What you are saying is not a
Yes, yes.
smallpox. Rather than it is something called VZ, varicella zoster. So we have different types
Sir,
of
I
pox
don't know,
viruses.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Actually,
I,
the original smallpox, the original variola virus has been eradicated. This virus is not present in community right now. So the thing
oh,
that we are seeing is that is this one, varicella zoster. And varicella zoster is the common infection we will see. Varicella zoster and the other one is chicken pox. So that is common. But smallpox was eradicated. Okay, don't confuse. Yeah,
okay.
but we will get that pox infection. What you said, Mata disease, that is obviously true. There are few pox virus infections we will get, but they're moderately uh, less less dangerous, I can say. Okay. Hmm. So this is all about the classification of Poxviridae. In the Poxviridae, we have two subfamilies, Cordyceps and Entomopox. In Cordyceps, we have four genuses, Molluscipox, Orthopox, Parapox, and Etapox. Our smallpox virus belongs to Orthopox virus. Okay. Since smallpox and cowpox virus belongs to the same genus, that is why this cowpox vaccine worked out for smallpox also. So it is a miracle, an accidental miracle that happened to Edward Jenner. See, he don't know all this taxonomical classification. Just he kept cowpox virus into the patients, and they were immunized by smallpox. So a happy coincidence, right? So yeah, by understanding the classification, we will know the behind mechanisms. That is why cowpox worked for smallpox infection because they're both sharing same genus. That means they're structurally or genetically they're closely related viruses. So this virus antibodies also targeted smallpox. So that is why the people were immunized. So immunization worked out because of both viruses belongs to the same genus. Okay, so this is all about the classification of smallpox. Next, let us see the morphology of smallpox. So the morphology is uh, this one. This smallpox has many names, students. It is called as variola virus, or it is also called as vaccinia. So it has many names because for a long time it was present in the people. So they named different names to the same virus. Okay. Anyway, morphology. So the morphology of smallpox is 300 into 200 into 100. So what is this 300 into 200 into 100 nanometers? 300 length, 200 breadth, 100 width. So 300 length, 200 breadth, and 100 is the width of this virus. By the way, smallpox is one of the largest virus. Instead of smallpox, we should say large pox. So among viruses, smallpox is the largest virus. Okay, smallpox is largest. It is the size of a smallest bacteria. That is what they used to say. So smallpox is one of the largest virus we have. So the size of smallpox is 300 into 200 into 100. Then shape. The shape of this smallpox is brick shaped. Okay, a complex symmetry is present to this smallpox virus. So the overall shape of the smallpox virus is brick shaped, and symmetry is complex. So a complex symmetry present to the nuclear capsid. Actually, it is dumbbell shape. Complex symmetric nuclear acid is present to the pox virus, smallpox virus. Genome is a double-stranded DNA, envelope present. Special proteins include lateral bodies are present inside the virus. So nearby this dumbbell-shaped nuclear capsule, you can see lateral bodies. So presence of this lateral bodies is a unique feature for a smallpox virus. So this is the overall morphology of smallpox virus. A quick review. Size is 300 into 200 into 100 nanometers. Shape is brick shaped. Symmetry is complex with a dumbbell shaped nuclear capsid. Genome is double stranded DNA. Envelope present. Special proteins such as lateral bodies present inside the virus. So this is the morphology of smallpox virus. Next, let us see the susceptibility and resistance of this particular smallpox virus. So pox viruses, so if protected from sunlight, may remain viable for months at room temperature. In the cold or in the freeze, dried from, they can survive for years. They are susceptible to UV light and other radiations. They are resistant to 1% phenol, but are readily inactivated by formalin. Though pox viruses are enveloped, they are not inactivated by either. Okay. So even the pox virus is an enveloped virus, but we cannot kill this virus by alcohols actually. So that is something uniqueness of this smallpox virus. So even though it is a enveloped virus, we cannot kill it by lipid solvents such as alcohol, ethyl alcohol, methyl alcohol cannot kill this virus, and it can able to survive. Okay, it can able to survive in the sunlight, and at room temperature it can survive for months, and in the cold temperature it can survive for years. And it is susceptibility to UV light and irradiation. That means if we expose UV light or radiation, it can be killed. Okay, but this virus shows resistance towards the lipid solvents such as alcohols, right? So this is something interesting about smallpox. Next, cultivation. So this this smallpox virus will be cultivated in the CAM membrane of the egg. So what is the CAM stands for? Can anyone tell me? CAM membrane. What is the full form? CAM.
I don't know, but sir, they are present on the legs egg in upper part of the present in egg cam membrane. But sir, I don't know full name of cam.
Yes, this is outer membrane of egg. What you said is correct.
Yes.
Yeah. The full form of CAM means chorioallantoic membrane. So we can able to inoculate the virus in the chorioallantoic membrane of the embryonated egg. So in this embryonated egg, we can able to cultivate the smallpox virus. So especially we need to inoculate this virus in the chorioallantoic membrane of the embryonated egg. After inoculating this virus, then the virus will start damaging the chorioallantoic membrane, right? So within 2 to 3 hours, within 2 to 3 days, okay. So within 2 to 3 days, we can able to see poxes on the CAM membrane. What is this poxes? I said POCKS, poxes. So what are those poxes? Yeah, this is pox. So this is a actual chorioallantoic membrane of the embryonated egg. Here you can see these bright spots. These spots, the spots that are produced by smallpox virus, these spots are called as POCKS, poxes. So by observing poxes on the membrane of chorioallantoic membrane, we can able to say that yes, the smallpox was replicating. It was present in the patient sample. So this virus can be cultivated in the chorioallantoic membrane of the embryonated egg, right? So poxes can be seen in the chorioallantoic membrane. Each pox belongs to a single virus. So each virus will produce a single nodule like this. So these nodules are called as POCKS, poxes. Yeah. So these are the poxes.
Hello, sir. Sir.
Yes, no.
Can I see in microscope of pox virus? Because sir, pox virus are very large in shape. Means sir.
I don't know that. Can you able to see the smallest bacteria? If you see that bacteria, maybe there is a chance of seeing this. I'm not sure now.
Oh, I think sir, in size microns only can see seen in
correct.
microscope.
Very good, Navneet.
Not
so you know
nanometer.
Okay, nanometers sir. Cannot seen by microscope. Maybe micrometers can be seen. Correct. Very good. Only I'm feeling like I'm teaching only to Navneet here. What about others? Simply sitting. Okay. Anyway, next. So we can even, if we want to cultivate this pox virus in a cell, means what cell culture we can use? So we can use HeLa cells. So we can use either monkey kidney cell lines, HeLa cell lines can be used, okay, or even chicken embryo cell lines can be used for growing the pox virus. So within 2 to 3 days, we will get the results. So in pox virus, we will see inclusion bodies. So what type of inclusion bodies we can see? Do you remember? Inclusion bodies generated by smallpox virus. So we will see guanine bodies. So in smallpox virus, we will see either guanine bodies or Pasteurine bodies. So guanine bodies and Pasteurine bodies can be seen in smallpox virus. But did you saw the interesting feature here, students? What is smallpox virus? Is it a DNA virus or RNA virus?
DNA double stranded.
DNA viruses. Where do DNA viruses? What type of inclusion bodies we will see in DNA viruses? Intranuclear inclusion bodies or cytoplasmic? Where do DNA virus will replicate? Tell me.
Intranuclear, sir, I think.
Right? Yes, intranuclear. But see the smallpox where it is? In the cytoplasm. I think it has a very complex replication, I think. So yeah, this is a contradiction actually. So smallpox inclusion bodies can be seen in the cytoplasm rather than in the nucleus of the cell. So this is something interesting. I forgot about this interesting feature. So smallpox will cause inclusion bodies. Those inclusion bodies are called as guanine bodies, and these guanine bodies are intracytoplasmic inclusion bodies. Okay, so smallpox will produce intracytoplasmic inclusion bodies, which is guanine bodies. Okay, don't confuse. It is a DNA virus only, but I don't know the reason why it is showing intracytoplasmic inclusion bodies. But remember, so smallpox virus will cause guanine bodies. So guanine bodies are the inclusion bodies for smallpox, which are intracytoplasmic. Right? Next. So this is the guanine bodies. So this is the picture of guanine bodies. Okay. So coming to the pathogenesis of smallpox virus. So the pathogenesis include. So the first one is transmission. How the smallpox will transmit. So it is a very highly contagious virus, students. It is even airborne. This virus can spread even through air. When I say airborne, I don't know whether you are understanding the severity of airborne or not. For example, if I have smallpox virus means when I'm breathing the air, I will exhale and I will breathe, right? When I'm exhaling my air, the air from my nose, through that air, the virus will start spreading. So it is called airborne infection. Even through the air of an infected patient, we can expose. Very deadly, and it can easily contaminate a large amount of population. So yes, it is a airborne infection. So by the name itself, you can understand how deadly the smallpox pandemic was once upon a time. So so smallpox is a airborne infection. It will transmit through face-to-face contact, and a direct contact can occur by touching the fluids that are contaminated by smallpox. So this virus can also have the capabilities of crossing the placenta. That means in a pregnant woman, the virus can infect a baby. Virus can able to infect a fetus. So this is something interesting. So yeah, this is the transmission of smallpox virus. Coming to the pathogenesis. So first we will inhale the virus through the air. After inhaling the virus, this virus will initiate inhalation or first we will inhale the virus. After it will replicate in the upper respiratory tract, then it will migrate towards the nearby lymph nodes. Once it then it will release into the blood, causing primary viremia. After primary viremia, it will go to the target, it will go to the central, it will go to spleen, liver, bone marrow. Then from spleen, liver and bone marrow, there it will replicate and it will cause secondary viremia. After secondary viremia, the virus will start migrating towards the target region. So the target region of this virus is skin actually. So it will go to the skin and it will start replicating under the skin, meanwhile damaging the blood vessels. If the blood vessels damaged means blood will leak. So that is where we will see that red spots on the skin. So that red spots is due to damaged blood vessels. So that damaged blood vessels will release blood into the under the skin, and we can see the characteristic uh, bubbles like patches, nodules on the skin, which is smallpox infection, right? So this is the complete pathogenesis of smallpox. So since this virus has the capability of agglutinating the red blood cells, this blood may coagulate within the blood. It will clot, and that clot will cause multi-organ failure can also occur. So a deadly infection actually, smallpox. Okay. So what is the time period? So what is the complete incubation time of this smallpox virus? So incubation time will be around 16 days. So at least you need to stay 16 days. After 16 days, you can see the signs and symptoms of this virus, right? So initially, after 13th day, you can feel fever and a small rashes can be seen. So by 16th day, you can see a complete skin rashes on the skin, rashes on the skin. So after 2 weeks, we will recover from this infection. So within 2.5 weeks, we will develop the immunity and we will recover from the infection. So this is the complete pathogenesis of smallpox. Inhalation of virus, multiplying in the upper respiratory tract, migrating towards lymph nodes, primary viremia, then going to the central foci, which is spleen, liver, bone marrow, causing secondary viremia, then migrating towards the periphery of the skin, resulting in damage of blood vessels and production of rashes on the skin. So this is the complete pathogenesis of smallpox. So I have given another nice diagrammatic representation. So through mucosal surfaces, it will migrate to nearby lymph nodes, then primary viremia. After primary viremia, central foci, liver, spleen, other, and it will go to the, after secondary viremia, it will target to the skin, resulting in formation of the nodules over the skin like this. So this is the smallpox infection. This is a smallpox infection and its pathogenesis, right? Next, what are the signs and symptoms of smallpox? We need not to worry. By just seeing the rashes itself, we can able to understand the signs and symptoms of this virus. So if a few signs and symptoms of smallpox infection are appearance of red itchy rashes initially, and it looks like an insect bite. Okay, we can see this bite, these red rashes on face, scalp, chest, and back. We can see some fever in the patient. The patient may experience abdominal pain or loss of appetite. He won't feel hungry. We can observe mild headache. General feeling of uneasiness and discomfort can be seen. Dry cough and common cold also seen. So due to this dry cough, the patient will cough. So virus will spread vigorously. So due to dry cough. So these are the signs and symptoms of smallpox. So even common cold can be seen in smallpox infection. So what is the diagnosis? Traditionally, we need not to do any diagnosis for smallpox. Just by seeing the signs and symptoms itself, we can understand, yes, it is a smallpox infection. So there is no much laboratory tests to perform to detect the smallpox. Okay. So just by seeing the signs, we can able to understand it, whether it is a smallpox or not. If you want, you can go for rapid tests like a PCR or RFLP can be done. RFLP stands for restricted fragment length polymorphism, and polymerase chain reaction can be used to detect the virus in the blood. Treatment, there is no treatment for smallpox. All we can do is we need to rest the patient. So there is no proven treatment medication for the smallpox infection. Okay, then prevention is better than cure. So we will give smallpox vaccine. Okay, so vaccination can be given and it will even we have this post exposure prophylaxis. Even if someone got smallpox infection means immediately we can give the serotherapy and we can recover the patient. So yeah, so eradicate anyway, we need not to worry about smallpox today. Smallpox was completely eradicated by World Health Organization. So on May 8, 1980, we eradicated smallpox from this world. So I was expecting a day where the HIV will be eradicated. Even short-term goal, I want to see the first approved vaccine of COVID-19, and I was expecting the eradication day of COVID-19. So there are some happy incidences in the human history. So these viruses will cause a hell lot of nuisance. They will cause a majority of death worldwide. Okay, anyway, the smallpox was eradicated in 1980. But, students, even though the virus was eradicated, but the original virus is still kept preserved in the World Health Organization bank. And what they are saying is they can use this virus as a bioweapon to bio to keep and send that develop to any country. So, but we preserve the smallpox strain not for bioweapon, but rather than if in the future if we got any smallpox means we need to know the strain. So for for correlating the strain, we preserved the original smallpox virus. So that is another thing. Anyway, so the smallpox was eradicated in 1980 by the great World Health Organization. So smallpox is dead. So that's it, students. If you have any doubts, you can ask in smallpox. A very simple virus. Any doubts in smallpox? Can I start the other virus? Are you listening?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let us go through next virus. I'm opening next virus. Just wait. Virology became a headache for you, right? So many things to study. That's the problem. Okay. This is your right opportunity. Use me wisely. I'm not giving any student seminars. I'm single-handedly delivering all the viruses. So all you need to do is why I'm taking the classes, because I can able to break down. If I teach means you will get something. If you are taking seminars, that will be in the air. You won't get anything into your brain. I'm not telling you're not capable, but you may get confused here. And the next in the unit 5, the next virus is after smallpox. The next virus is herpes simplex viruses. So let us start discussing about herpes simplex virus. So what is this herpes simplex virus? Let us see. As I stated, DNA have few families like herpes adeno, pox, parvo. So we finished the pox virus. So the next one is herpes viruses. So in this herpes viridae, these herpes viridae have 3 classes: alpha viruses, beta viruses, and gamma viruses. Alpha viruses include herpes simplex 1, herpes simplex 2, Epstein-Barr virus. Beta virus include cytomegalovirus, whereas gamma virus include varicella zoster. Okay. A quick introduction regarding this herpes viruses. So one important thing regarding herpes virus, they are sexually transmitted diseases. Usually herpes viruses will cause STDs. Pawan? STDs means sexually transmitted diseases. So these viruses will cause sexually transmitted diseases. Okay, and they will cause latent infection in the patient. So we don't know that the patient has this herpes virus. It is one of the latent, it will show latent infection. That means it can stay in the patient for almost 7 to 20 years without any signs and symptoms. So that is one problem. But when the immunity dropped means, then we can see this herpes signs and symptoms. So in the primary herpes infection, we will see the skin rashes, so small spots on the lips, inside the lips or in the eyes we can see. Okay, so these are the signs and symptoms of herpes. Basically, these herpes viruses are broadly divided into two types. So they are divided broadly into two types: herpes simplex 1 and herpes simplex 2. Okay, we have two types of herpes simplex viruses. So they are herpes simplex 1 and herpes simplex 2. So what is the difference between herpes simplex 1 and 2? That difference can be seen by signs and symptoms. For example, herpes simplex 1 will cause acute gingivostomatitis. So what is this acute gingivostomatitis? Okay, this is acute gingivostomatitis. Inflammation on the lips is the acute gingivostomatitis. Then herpes labialis. This will cause on the outside of the lip. So this is herpes labialis. So these are few signs of herpes simplex 1 infection. Then third one is keratoconjunctivitis. Really painful to see images. In the eye, on the periphery of the eye ring, on the pupil, you can see this virus nodules. So this is an actual herpes virus which was replicating inside the eye. So this condition is called as keratoconjunctivitis. Then we have eczema herpatum, which is complete body will get herpes rashes. So this is eczema herpatum. Then it will cause encephalitis, which is inflammation to the brain, and it can also cause something called dendritic keratitis. So this is a dendritic keratitis. So these are the signs of herpes simplex 1. It will cause acute gingivostomatitis, herpes labialis, keratoconjunctivitis, eczema herpatum, encephalitis, and dendritic keratitis are the signs of herpes simplex 1 virus. Then let us see the herpes simplex 2. This herpes simplex 2 will cause genital infection. Genital infection was caused by herpes simplex 2 virus, whereas herpes simplex 1 will cause these following disease conditions, whereas herpes simplex 2 will cause genital infection. So let us see the signs of herpes simplex 2 virus infection. So herpes simplex virus will cause genital rashes. So rashes on the penis and in the vagina we can see. Then herpes simplex 2 can also cause neonatal herpes infection. That means just born babies will get a herpes infection, which is called neonatal herpes simplex infection. Then even this herpes simplex virus can cause meningitis. Inflammation to the cerebral meninges can be seen. So cerebral meningeal layers will get inflamed. So these are the differences between herpes simplex 1 and 2 virus. Okay. So let us start the actual notes of this herpes simplex viruses. So coming to the introduction to herpes simplex family. So herpes viruses are included in the family Herpes viridae, which was divided into 3 subfamilies. So this 3 subfamilies include alpha, beta, gamma. So all these are DNA viruses. They are characterized by the ability to establish lifelong latent infection. Till the patient death, they will have this herpes infection. Okay. Class lo mami. Okay. What we are discussing. This herpes virus will cause lifelong infection, students. That means if you get herpes infection means that's it. Till your death, herpes will live with you. So lifelong latent infection can be produced by herpes viruses. That is one major problem. And the person even don't know that he has a herpes infection. Usually they will be asymptomatic. That is a real problem. So this is a basic introduction to herpes viridae. Then classification of this herpes viridae. So the classification include, we have three genuses, alpha genus, beta and gamma. In alpha we have herpes simplex 1, herpes simplex 2, Epstein-Barr virus. Beta virus includes cytomegalovirus and gamma virus include varicella zoster. These are the classification of herpes viruses. Then let us see the morphology of herpes virus. If you see the morphology, this herpes virus have a special membrane called tegument membrane. Silent children. Okay, students. This virus have a special membrane called tegument membrane. So that is a characteristic feature of herpes viruses. All herpes viruses will have tegument membrane. Then coming to the size. So the size of herpes virus is herpes simplex virus is 100 to 200 nanometers. Shape is irregular. Symmetry is icosahedral. Genome is a double-stranded DNA. Envelope present, and special proteins such as tegument membrane proteins are present. By the way, I haven't given one important word here. Yeah, what is that? This, tell me one thing, students. The subproteins which are present on nucleocapsid are called as what? Proteins present on the capsid are called as what?
Capsid, capsomer, and papillomer in nucleus.
Very good, capsomers. So in case of herpes viruses, it will have a specific number, a specific sum of capsomers, which is 162 capsomers. So all herpes viruses have 162 capsomers on the capsid. So on the nucleocapsid, these viruses will possess 162 capsomers. So this is the one important thing. So symmetry is icosahedral, and to this nucleocapsid, they have 162 capsomers. Genome is double-stranded DNA. Envelope is present, and a special protein structure, which is tegument membrane, is present in the herpes viruses. So this is all about the morphology of herpes viruses. Next, yeah. Now, how to differentiate herpes simplex 1 and herpes simplex 2? Since both are very closely correlated, how do we differentiate? How to differentiate HSV1 from HSV2? So there are few criteria to identify the difference between 1 and 2. So let us see the criteria. So both HSV1 and 2 can cross-react serologically. So there are few criteria to identify 1 and 2. So the criteria is, by using monoclonal antibodies, we can detect 1 and 2, or herpes simplex 2 virus will cause larger poxes on the CAM membrane. But HSV1 will cause smaller POCKS, smaller nodules on the CAM membrane. And HSV2 will replicate in the chicken embryo fibroblasts, whereas HSV1 cannot replicate in chicken embryo fibroblast. HSV2 is very more neurovirulent compared to HSV1. The infectivity of HSV2 is more temperature sensitive than HSV1. HSV2 is more resistant to antiviral agents such as cytarabine and IUDR in culture. Yes. So yeah, there are a few criteria to differentiate HSV1 from HSV2. So the last and final is, we can able to detect restriction by using restriction endonucleases. We can able to differentiate HSV1 from HSV2. So these are the parameters to identify the differences between HSV1 and 2. So that's it. That is the differentiating criteria for HSV1 and 2. Next, Next is pathogenesis of herpes simplex virus. Now, in the pathogenesis, I want to tell one important thing. These viruses have the tendency to migrate by using the neurons. With the help of neurons, they can able to migrate within the body. That neurons mediated migration of virus is called as retrograde axonal transport. Retrograde axonal transport means the migration of virus by using neurons is called as retrograde axonal transport. By this mechanism, the virus will spread inside the body. When I said herpes virus can use the neurons to spread, that means there is a high chance of getting central nervous system infection by these herpes simplex viruses. So obviously even the psychological abnormalities can be seen in herpes simplex infected patients. So let us see the actual pathogenesis of the virus. So okay. The truth is I haven't prepared for this lecture, so I was reading now. So first, in the primary infection, we will see rashes on the skin, oral mucous membranes, or in the eyes, resulting in vesicle formation. Then the virus will start spreading into the lymphatic nodes, and it will cause lymphadenitis. That means inflammation to the lymph nodes. Then this after a primary infection, the virus will go to a latent infection. After primary infection, the virus will start traveling to the retrograde by using retrograde intraaxonal flow. It will migrate towards the sensory root of ganglia, and they will settle within these neurons in the ganglia. So they will become lifelong latent infection. So the target region of herpes simplex viruses is sensory root ganglia of the brain. So they will reach that sensory root of ganglia by retrograde intraaxonal flow. So with the help of this retrograde intraaxonal flow, the virus will travel towards the sensory root ganglia of the brain, and they will settle within the neurons of ganglia, and the most common being trigeminal and sacral ganglia. So we have different types of ganglions within the brain, right? So trigeminal. If you remember the cranial nerves, you can understand these things. Totally, we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves. I forgot the names. Olfactory, optic, oculomotor, trigeminal, abducent, facial, glossopharyngeal. You have different types of facial nerves. So particularly this virus will use the sacral and uh, trigeminal and sacral ganglia to migrate So after primary infection, it will migrate towards the sensory root ganglia by retrograde intraaxonal flow. Okay, so the herpes virus, the virus DNA will be incorporated into the host cell genome. So the virus DNA will be keep into our cell genome, and virus will become a permanent lifelong latent infection, and it will embed its DNA in most of human junk DNA. Only 7% of our DNA is a good DNA. 7% a functional DNA, and all other rest of the DNA is a junk DNA. There is no use of that DNA. If you see the junk DNA, 70% of junk DNA has herpes virus genome. That indicates this herpes virus is infecting humans for a long period of time. Even our ancestors, the monkeys, Australopithecus, Africanus, even our previous ancestors also got infected by the herpes virus actually. So it is one of the very old virus that we seen, and that There is a sub-branch in virology called paleovirology. So in paleovirology, we will study the fossils of viruses. Is it possible to detect fossils of viruses? Fossils means virus itself is a very small. And how do we identify fossils? So that fossils are in our DNA itself. By seeing the by seeing the viral DNA traces of this virus in our DNA, we can able to study the evolution and the previous history of this particular virus. That is something interesting. Okay, so the the point that we need to know here is these herpes viruses will cause latent infection, right? And these viruses will cause the signs and symptoms include common cold, fever, pneumonia, stress, and the person may feel uh, discomfort if he is exposed to sunlight, since it is affecting the brain. So this is all about the pathogenesis of herpes virus. So let us see here. So in this diagrammatic representation I given here. So virus entered into the body, then it will replicate in the primary site. After replicating, virus enters into the neuron and it will transport to retrograde transport to ganglion. Then it will establish a latent infection. After latent infection, the virus will reactivate and return to the site of initial infection. Oh, it will go back to the initial infection site, and it will cause a fever, stress, and it can even cause skin lesions. So that lesions are seeing. So that means by the time we are seeing lesions means already the patient has a virus as a latent infection in his body. So a very deadly virus actually. And most of the herpes viruses will cause cancers. Yes, literally, herpes viruses will cause cancer. Viral mediated cancers can occur, especially blood cancer can be seen by herpes viruses. So cancer can be caused by these viruses. So one of the carcinogen is biological carcinogen is herpes viruses. They will act as a carcinogens and they will initiate a cancer in the. So in the next lecture, we can discuss about lab diagnosis. Okay. So thank you very much, students. Thank you very much. Let me download the attendance. So class finished. Thank you. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. If not, you can do. Any doubts?
No, sir.
I hope not. Okay, then see you.